Alright, hello ladies and gents. Today is Sunday, that's why I'm dressed up. Today I'm going to be discussing a few books because I decided to do a challenge which I've really enjoyed so far. Asking my friends and other people I know, my family, for book suggestions and reading any book that they might suggest. So I've accumulated quite a few suggestions. I think I have 8 or 9 books that I got suggested that I need to read. But I'm not the fastest reader. It's mainly because I really don't have much time to read at all, so I've really been trying to read these as fast as I can, but it really is not that fast. In fact, my March has been quite disappointing in the amount of books I've read, but I've just been so busy. It's so hard to read books, especially because in my free time I'm so tired that it's draining to read books. I start falling asleep. So anyways, I'm doing the best I can. Instead of reading them all and then reviewing them all in like a month or something, I decided to do the first 3 books I've read now, and partially because 2 of them are library books and I have to return them to the library, so it's nice just to have the physical ones here while I'm talking about them. I didn't upload last week because I've been so busy, as I said, and I really didn't have any time or feel inspired to make something, so I was like, well, I'm not just gonna make, any random thing, so I didn't upload. So yes, also I'm filming this on my phone because it's a wider camera angle than my normal camera, which has been annoying me because I need to get a wider lens, so this is just a little bit easier. So the first book I read was suggested by my friend Michael. He suggested the book Mere Christianity, which is by C.S. Lewis, and it's sort of it's a book really explaining the very sort of general beliefs and reasons for Christianity. It's sort of a beginner's book, not exactly a beginner's book, but sort of a beginner's book to Christianity, really introducing it to you and trying to make you understand it, which it's a very good book. I'd read it before, but I had no problem reading it again. I do love that book, and I read it in 2 days, I think, which is about as fast as you can get for me. But yes, obviously, going through it again, it was actually bizarre because I could not remember, I still cannot remember at what point in my life I read that book. I know I've read it. Rereading it again especially, I was like, I've read this book, but I just cannot place when I've read it, and it's bothering me. Like, I just have no idea when I read that book. It feels like it should be more clear to me, but I don't know. Anyways, regardless, it's a very good book. I definitely would recommend it to Christians and non-Christians alike. I've always found it a little bit hard to read Christian books, being a Christian, for multiple reasons, but one of the general reasons is, especially books like that, where I feel like, oh, I already know everything in there, I don't need to read this, I don't need to be convinced. But it actually is so reassuring and really helps to read books like that. Anything C.S. Lewis has written about Christianity, I really have enjoyed those books, and I highly suggest reading them if you haven't. He's very good at making analogies, especially. I love his analogies in the books and just the very practical common sense he uses. Very good book. I think I've rated it 4 stars. I don't think I entirely agree with every single thing he says, but for the most part, it's very good. Anyways, I was glad that my friend suggested that because I was reading religious books in Lent anyways, so it was just another one I could throw on there. The next book I read was The Iliad by Homer. This book I was a little bit intimidated because it's almost 600 pages long, and obviously being short of time, I was like, okay, this is going to be a little bit of a challenge to read quickly. I have to admit, I've honestly been sort of ignorant in my life towards Greek mythology. At least, I don't know much about it, or never did, really. I have a very general knowledge, but I never read the Iliad for school or anything. But my whole life, since I was a kid, I always had an interest in the Iliad and the Odyssey. There was sort of like this very mysterious intrigue to them that I've always had, and it was actually weird because recently, like in the past month, I kept seeing the Odyssey on my bookshelf and thinking, like, I really want to read those books. I just really want to enter into that world that I heard of when I was a kid, and I always was like so intrigued by, but it's always just remained a mystery to me. Anyways, very shortly after my instances of very continuously seeing the book and being like, wow, I should read that, my friend Victoria suggested to me to read the Iliad and the Odyssey. I have not read the Odyssey yet. I'm actually starting it today, but I finished the Iliad last week. I think it took me about 4 or 5 days to read, so that was very good time for me anyways. It's not the easiest book to read, obviously it's very old. I really like this translation actually. This is the translation by Barry Powell. There's like 4 or 5 different translations. There might be even more than that actually, but this one is very well balanced, I've heard, so I liked this one. And I really enjoyed it. It was actually, I wasn't really sure what to expect, to be honest. I was going into it very sort of unsure, but it was really good. Certainly it can be a confusing book and a little bit hard to get into if you're more of a casual reader. I would actually call myself more of a casual reader, but once I got into it, it was really pretty easy to read. And I'd say the hardest part about it is the battle scenes, because they can go on for a while and it's so specific, and there's so many people in this book. There's so many different names, like ancestors and genealogies, and it's like I've had no idea who any of these people are, so it's like the battles can be a little bit confusing because they say all these random names that you don't really know. But regardless, usually during the battles there's like pauses where they start talking more specifically about different conversations or whatever, so it's very good and it keeps you engaged, and I really enjoyed it. It was one of those books, which I really love, that really gets you wanting to just keep going and seeing what happens and where it's going to go. So that really helped me to keep reading it, and it was a really pretty fast read for me, considering how long it is. And I enjoyed, it has illustrations in it and everything. I enjoyed having those along with the story. Yeah, I'm really excited to read the Odyssey now, just to read the end of the Trojan War, because that's really the main thing I've ever been familiar with, is the end of the Trojan War. So I'm excited to read that, and then the rest of the Odyssey has always intrigued me as well. I'm very proud of myself and glad that I finally got around to reading this, and I'm glad it was suggested. It was very odd that she happened to suggest it, because I was thinking about reading it already. But yes, probably would give it 5 stars, I suppose. It's a very crude book, though. It's very crude, and there's a lot of violence, and it's a very different world to the world nowadays, so. Alright, and then the third book that I've read so far, suggested by friends, is, I just finished yesterday, The Night Circus, by Erin Morgenstern. This book was suggested to me by my friend Rachel. By the way, she also has a YouTube channel, which is a brilliant YouTube channel. She focuses mainly on book content, which is brilliant, and she is she's definitely the fastest reader I know of. I know that she has a lot of time on her hands, though, more than me, to be fair, but nevertheless, she reads a lot of books. I think she's read 49 or 50 already, maybe even more than that this year, and I think I'm on like 25 books. But yeah, she has a great channel. She reviews pretty much all the books she reads and does a brilliant job. But yeah, she suggested this to me, which was very fateful, because coincidentally, this book is actually so suited to my tastes. The main premise of the book is about 2 magicians who literally have magical powers in a contest against each other, and they end up falling in love. And the whole book is sort of around the contest that they're in, but they don't know that they're each other's opponents at first, but then they figure it out later. But anyways, it's about a circus as well, because the circus is sort of wrapped into the whole contest. It's a very whimsical sort of book, actually, and obviously I'm a huge fan of fantasy because I love Lord of the Rings and the whole Tolkien world, and as much as I love more practical books and books about the real world and real life, I certainly have a real hunger and love for fantastical books, and there's so many like dreamlike and wonderful sequences in this book that are so fun to imagine and to read through, and they're very well described. I actually love descriptive books, which, again, because I love Tolkien so much, it shouldn't be surprising that I love description. But yes, I love the whole atmosphere of this book. A lot of it takes place in autumn and in Halloween and in England, which I love as well. the romance was very moving, and there's also one of my favorite parts about the book is two characters called Bailey and Poppet. They're younger, but they also sort of have a romance, and I loved all the parts with them, which is the book also has different timelines. There's like a future timeline and then one almost like 10 years before, which it switches between both of them, which again, I also actually really like books that do that. I'm a huge fan of mystery novels. Some mystery novels sort of do that switching, not a lot, but I really love this sort of climactic, the build up throughout the whole story. I really love the tension builds and then leading up all to the final where you just want to know what happens in all these different circumstances. It was really good, and it was a really satisfying ending. I actually loved the whole ending of this book. As I said, it was very magical, and I actually really liked it. I'm very glad that Rachel suggested it to me, because it's probably not something I would have looked at and been like, oh, I really want to read that. But now that I did read it, I really love it, and I got it from the library, so I do want to get a copy of it. Definitely something I would reread in the future as well. I actually sort of have a love-hate relationship for books that really get me so enthralled into the story, like mystery novels, because they just make me so eager to keep reading and just unfolding it and seeing how it plays out. I've had some mystery novels I read where I get so anxious to keep going. I'm just sitting there for hours, and my chest starts hurting because of anxiety. I get chest pains and heart palpitations and increased heartbeat from anxiety. So mystery novels don't help that at all, because I get so intense with them. It sounds a bit, I'm making it sound kind of extreme, but nevertheless, I get very enthralled in them, and this book made me have that sort of feeling. So it is sort of a mystery novel in a way, because the whole thing is a little bit of a mystery that you're trying to figure out. Anyways, I would give this book 5 stars. I'm not very critical on books. If I really enjoy the book and be very brought into the world of the book, then I really love it. So those are the 3 books I've read so far, and I'm really enjoying this challenge of reading books that friends suggest to me, because it's really helping me to expand my horizons, because it's always so hard for me to choose books to read that I don't really know much about, or that are beyond the books I'm familiar with. So this is like forcing me to just get random books and read them, so it's very enjoyable. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much about these. I know I probably did, but I'll see you next week.